The Women-Owned Business segment is a part of Energize Colorado, and we help to expand opportunities for small business owners who identify as women in Colorado. I don't know how many of you are a part of our Facebook group, but our Facebook group connects thousands of women and entrepreneurs, and we have regularly scheduled virtual and in-person events, and this allows our group to connect, to support one another, and to grow. So if you're not a member of the Facebook group, let us know and we can send you the link. For our lunch and learn today, we are so lucky to have Agata Chydzinski and Amy Vance. They will be talking to us today about the business development ecosystem. Agata and Amy will share tactics that will help us build long-lasting relationships, retain clients, and network more effectively. We are so excited to have them because business development is really a part of almost all of our businesses. So we're so excited to have them today. And I will now turn it over to these two wonderful women.
Thanks, Molly. We are delighted to be here, and thank you for having me and Amy. I'm going to speak for you because I started talking.
Please do.
All right, I am going to share the screen. Can everybody see this? Awesome. Amy, can I take the lead to get us started?
Please do.
Awesome. So we're here to talk about the business development ecosystem, and here's a little blurb about the two of us. So I'll start to say that I'm an advisor for a living, and I do a lot of sales and business development advising for my clients. So this is kind of my jam. And as Amy, I'll let you kind of introduce yourself on that realm.
Absolutely. So I am the Director of Business Development for Roseman and Associates. We're a multifamily architecture firm here in Colorado with an office in Denver. So my focus is really being a connector and a relationship builder in the commercial real estate and architecture, engineering, and construction space. So a little bit of a different approach than what Aggie takes, but I think it'll be fun to be able to show you guys the difference between our styles, but also the similarities and how we approach sales, business development, and relationship building across industries.
I couldn't have said it better. So we're going to start by first, what is an ecosystem? Amy and I spent a lot of time building this out. And obviously, when you think ecosystem, you think of the earth and everything, like the interconnectedness of things that work together. That's exactly what it means in business as well. So Amy kind of hit the nail on the head to say that my ecosystem is going to be very, very different from her ecosystem. So I'm excited to go through some of the things that we're going to be talking about. On the steps, we're going to be going over sourcing leads, which is step one. Where do you find the people that you want to work with and partner with? Building that relationship, closing or dropping, and then maintaining on both ends, maintaining your prospects and maintaining your clients. Take it away, Amy.
All right, so phase one and how you go about this to start is really just sourcing your leads. So figuring out where new opportunities are going to come from, where you're going to build some of the best connections and how they can start taking you forward. So one of the best options for sourcing leads is referrals. So if you think about when you're trying to do something like home improvement, or you're looking for support on some kind of creative artistic activity, usually you go to your friends and you ask, who have you used in the past? And how have they been to serve you? And so for us in our business, it's a similar thing where referrals from other people can be a great source for us to find new opportunities to reach out to, but also for others looking for us. Because when you have someone coming in and vouching and saying, this is somebody that we trust, this is someone who has done good work, it goes leaps and bounds above a cold call or another form of outreach that isn't as personal.
Yeah. And I know some of you may be able to relate. I personally hate business development and I hate sales. That was the one thing when I started my business and my businesses, I was always dreading to go and do cold calling. That was I didn't want to do it. So I developed kind of like this network of power partners or funnel feeders. And those are people who know me. They are not necessarily clients, but they could be people that I've worked with in the past. They could be people that would actually work with the same type of clientele, and businesses that would offer complementary services. So not do what I do, but either further it up or be down in the pipeline. So you have upward and downward power partners. And this is a great way to kind of prevent the cold calling, because just like Amy said, on the referral side, your clients are your best banner, while power partners are a great way for you to kind of surround yourself with people who you are going to be top of mind. If one of their clients says, I'm really struggling in that area, I would love to partner with somebody who can help me with it. And then I like to work smarter, not harder. So in terms of allowing myself to really maximize my time, I use a lot of business and sales intelligence tools. So it's where do I find my my prospects? I share a lot of tools and I develop a lot of tools to make my life easier, and then I share them with my network to be like, hey, I think that could be a good fit for you if that is something that you may need based on a chat we've had in the past. And that also has helped me kind of generating those qualified leads into my pipeline. And then Google resources. You have a lot of tools on Google that help you source your leads. Google Maps is a big one. Another one would be just Googling lists or Googling groups that can complement the source of your leads.
So LinkedIn and utilizing your network are very similar in the sense of what they can bring. It gives you an option to find potential people to reach out to. It also can be incredibly powerful if you do have a connection or a lead that you're looking to build a relationship with, but you don't have that intro yet. You can go in and see who else you are connected to that can do a warm introduction for you. Or it's a great way to find additional resource on what they're interested in, events that they're a part of, elements and organizations that they're interacting with, to give you a warm touch to reach out to. Because when you have something that goes beyond just a blank, I want to work with you, but can be able to say, hey, I noticed that we're both involved in this organization, or hey, I noticed that we both have a passion for affordable housing or sustainability, it can set the groundwork for a more effective conversation going forward. And then marketing and brand recognition, well, it can be seen as different from business development. It's really important because if people don't really know who you are, you have an incredibly uphill battle to kind of walk. So brand recognition is something that I've really been working on for our firm, because we've been established in Kansas City for the past 30 years, but are relatively new in the Denver market. And until people hear about you more and see your name more often, it gets harder for them to really take you as an incredible or kind of vetted source for opportunities. So brand recognition can be really just comes about being out and about in the industry enough that people start to see you more and recognize your name, associate that with a logo, and associate that with what you do. And marketing can be a really powerful tool to get you into the different areas and in front of the different people that can be potential leads for you and your business.
Awesome. Is everybody aligned so far? Cool. So the next step in that kind of first phase of sourcing is identifying target and your targets in plurals, right? Because you have to have multiples, not just one. So a good place to start is taking a look at your client base. And Amy and I are kind of going to ping pong over this because we both have very, very different approaches in terms of who our client base is. I work with women and immigrant business owners who are in the growth stage of their company. So they're not brand new entrepreneurs. They're trying to scale faster than they would by themselves. So I have to understand what their habits are, what their needs are. And some of those needs are universal: money, time, resources, et cetera, et cetera. You have to know kind of what your client base is today and to identify who you need to go get. And that also warrants of who do you like to work with, because you do not want that calendar dread that lets you kind of go into a meeting already with a grumpy face because you do not enjoy the person that you're about to talk to. Amy, you want to develop?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, we work a lot with development partners. They're typically who hire on an architecture firm to build out any of their projects. And for us, similar with Aggie, we're working with people for 3, 4, sometimes up to 5 years, depending on the length of the project. And so when we get in there, we really want to make sure that the people that we're targeting are people that, one, have work that's interesting and fun that we're going to want to work on for the next 3 to 5 years. 2, that aligns with where we are as a company. So for example, we only do multifamily architecture. And so I'm not going to spend my time chasing somebody that has more of their pipeline in hospitals or in office buildings, because that's not something that makes sense for us. So I want to make sure that they're building in the markets that we're focused on, but then also that we're aligning as a company. So we are a relationship company. We want to work with the same clients over and over and over again, and not just be a commodity designer for these firms. Sorry, guys, I'll work on trying to get my mic a little bit better. We have a full office and it kind of echoes. So for us, we really spend a lot of time figuring out, okay, where are our clients going? What are their goals with their project and their development? And do those align with how we operate as a design firm? And then are we making sure that we're all moving forward in the same direction? So is this developer going to be somebody that builds to hold the building, where they're going to want to make sure that they put a lot of time and effort and thought into their structural systems and their appliances and their finishes? Or are they somebody that just is going to want to sell the building? And understanding what drives their decision, how they're operating their business, also allows us to understand how we can best tailor our approach to fit with them and be effective in that conversation, and whether there's somebody who we want to work with at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly right. And the rest is kind of laid out on the slide, but any questions so far on this specific area? No, if not, feel free to put them in the chat. What I'll drive really hard on this one is really truly take the time to develop your ideal client persona. There are worksheets that you can use that are online. I'm also happy to share it with Energize Colorado so that you can so that it can be propagated to you. But understanding who your ideal client is, and then once you have that prospect on the line with you, whether it's in person or on the call, making sure that chemistry is passing back and forth so that they know that you care for them and they care for you back. That goes a really long way. So we tackle the alignment in mission and values. That is really truly important. And then obviously the personal fit. Anything else, Amy, you want to add to that?
I would say that the big thing with the importance of this is just so that you're not spinning your wheels and feeling overwhelmed. Because, for example, with us in multifamily, there are a cajillion different developers out here building multifamily properties. And if I went after all of them, I think I would probably just cry and sit at my desk and be overwhelmed about even where to start. So creating these, identifying your targets, finding the elements that make them the right company to work with can really refine and provide direction for your outreach and your efforts that make it a lot more realistic and successful.
Awesome. So then we go into, okay, so once you have that prospect and you've identified them and you're starting to build your ecosystem, how do you get them to follow you and to really truly start building trust? Because that's the name of the game, is building trust. You have an opportunity to create this bond with this person that you're talking to, whether it's a potential connector or a prospect. And what they're trying to figure out from you is, one, do you have the expertise? And two, can they trust you to get them from point A to point B at the speed that they want to get? So the first key to making this happen is knowing your story and sharing your values, and then finding yourself where your clients are and where your prospects are. So if your clients are hanging out at certain events, go join them, because then you have an opportunity to have that walking, talking billboard that's taking you around and introducing you to other people. Amy, you want to take the second point?
Yeah, and I would say we are relationship driven as human individuals. We want to have that connection. And so when you're able to be in front of somebody and be your authentic self, it can go a long way in building that relationship. And doing your research is the easiest way to go into a conversation and feel a little bit more at ease. Because when you can go up and say, okay, I know I'm going to this event and there's going to be 5 people that I want to see. And I know that Joe really enjoys golfing, and that Susan is an avid reader, and that Carrie really enjoys sustainability and is involved in a lot of net zero projects. It gives you something to start the conversation, which can take away that sense of, oh no, what do I do? It gives you a purpose at the event to make you more successful because you know a couple of the targets that you're going for, and you don't just walk into a room feeling overwhelmed. And like I said, it just gives you some ammo, so where you feel like you're not just kind of floating in the ether as you're trying to make some of these connections, which really kind of ties into that taking advantage of the guest list.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And Amy and I have talked about it a lot on setting expectations too when you're showing up at events. As long as you don't show up and try to talk to everybody, because that's not going to happen. I know for me, it's like if I get to talk to one person and truly make a meaningful connection, that's a win for me, because that means that I did not waste my time. I also did not set myself up for failure, because if I'm already showing up somewhere thinking I'm going to get 5 clients, that's never going to happen. But if I go there to make friends, build relationships, and taking advantage of the guest list to even figuring out, are these people that I'm going to see qualified to be my clients, yes or no? And you can do your those, I think 2 and 3 work together. Know what your guest list is, and then do your homework on who is there. Molly, what, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do have a question. I was recently at a networking event in Chicago, and what I noticed was a lot of the people there knew each other very well. And it looked like they were engaged in very long conversations. How can you recommend being in a situation like that and kind of being able to use your time wisely and jump in and have those introductions or conversations without interrupting others? It's just really a practical matter.
Mm-hmm. You want to take it, Amy, or you want me to?
Sure. So I would say when you have that guest list and you know who you want to talk to, if you have those targets on there, then you know that that's kind of part of your purpose. And so it gives you, one, the confidence to break into that conversation. And if you are breaking into that conversation, I'm usually pretty straightforward about it and say, hey, I was hoping to chat with you ladies. Do you mind if I jump in here and engage in your conversation? Or you can kind of saddle up, listen for a little bit, and then kind of chime in on what they're talking about. Most people are pretty open to you joining the conversation, so I wouldn't have anxiety about it. I would usually just kind of address the nail on the head and say, hey, I'm here, I'd love to join the conversation, and kind of jump in and be a part of what they're talking about. I would say it's also, if you're concerned about, getting into a long conversation or trying to figure out the proper exit, again, addressing nail on the head, being honest and saying, I really enjoyed this conversation. We had a great time getting to know one another. There are several other people that I'm hoping to chat with tonight. So I'm going to run over and meet some of those, but I appreciated your time. And if there's more that we can talk about, then let's follow up later at another conversation. I think just being open and honest about an intro and an exit can really kind of set expectations and allow you to feel a little bit more comfortable moving in and out, especially when you have multiple people that you want to see, or when you're in a situation that you really don't want to continue the conversation.
Thanks.
I couldn't have said it any better. And I'll add that sometimes it's really awkward because you can't have a group of 4 or 5 people having a really, really involved conversation. If you're an expert in the matter, just walk into it with a question. just follow up whoever statement is made by a question, and then that kind of inserts you in the conversation pretty seamlessly. What I've learned not to do is to make another statement on top of that one, because I could be out of context. So asking a question is the safe way to kind of insert yourself in the conversation without being awkward and finding out that your topic had already been broached 3 statements ago.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
Yeah. Practice your pitch. Amy, what do you have to say about practicing your pitch?
Again, it's when you have something in your mind and you feel comfortable with it, it's going to make all of your interactions that much easier. Because when you know what you're going to say, when someone puts you on the spot of, all right, tell me about you, tell me about your business, tell me why you're here or why you want to talk to me, it makes it easy and can really open up that conversation. Plus, it gives you that opportunity to be your more authentic self because you have it worked out. It's always hard when someone comes in and asks you these questions and puts you on the spot that we tend to fumble or feel that sense of lack of confidence that can really kind of throw us off kilter and we start jumbling for straws. So practicing your pitch, it doesn't have to be a word for word, I have this memorized, but having the main points of why you're there, the value that you bring and what you can offer, just make that conversation that much easier.
That is so true. And also on number 5 kind of ties into all of them. I love to go to events with my clients because for those of you who are familiar with the show, How I Met Your Mother, Barney Stinson was a really, really good wingman. He would go out with Ted and say, have you met Ted? And so by bringing advocates, I am my clients' best advocates. I have a lot of clients that I work with that are like, oh man, Aggie, I hate going to networking events because 1, I'm shy, I'm an introvert, so it takes a lot of energy from me. And 2, I don't know anyone. And it's the scariest thing. And I'm like, take me with you. I'll be your wingman. And it doesn't matter. For me, I'm at the cusp of being extroverted and introverted. It does take a lot of energy from me, but it's so much easier for me to introduce other people than introduce myself. So I'm almost a better wingman, and I need a wingman when I go out. So I usually call a friend and I'm like, hey, you want to come with me to this event? Usually pick somebody who is high energy and loves to talk to people. And this way I do less of the talking and more of the answering questions that are being asked to me. But bringing an advocate, whether it's a client, whether it's a power partner, whether it's a friend, is always a really good way to kind of expand those values because these people know you, they've spent some time with you, and they can share that. And if it comes from somebody else's voice, it's all the more powerful.
Incredible as well. When you have someone who's speaking for you, I feel like we tend to listen to that person a little bit beyond or trust them more than when someone advocates for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of following up on that, just make sure you set realistic expectations. I mean, the reality is if you're not going to go to every event and come out with a new job or a new opportunity or a new lead, but if you have one good connection or someone that you resonate with, then I count that as a success. And that's how I've been able to get through a lot of events on my own.
Mm-hmm. So that takes us to phase 2. You've kind of sourced the people that you want to work with. You understand who they are. Now it's all about building the relationship, building the foundation. And I think that picture or that illustration speaks for itself. Like you have to build that solid foundation to kind of get into the next phase of that prospect relationship and continue developing your ecosystem. So I'll come from it from the kind of differentiation between sales and business development. First of all, I hate the word sales. I talk about relationship building all the time, and it's the same for business development, because one of my fears is to come across as a sleazy car salesman. I'm not on a lot, and I'm not trying to pawn off the latest lemon that I need to get rid of. That's not what business development and sales are about. It's about building trust, and I'm repeating the word trust because that really is what really fosters those relationships and helps you close better deals, not faster, not quicker, and not more, but better deals, that because better deals help with retention, they help with the entire ecosystem. And just remember, one thing is that in the relationship to connection and authenticity and active listening, is that you never know how the person in front of you will affect your ecosystem. You don't know how they fit in the puzzle yet. So make sure you build that relationship to understand what this is about.
The biggest piece I'll touch on here is the resiliency and the patience. Remember, this is a true relationship that you're trying to build. It's not just a one-off interaction. And true relationships, deep relationships with connection, they take time. And it's really, the world of business development is a marathon, not a sprint. And there can be many times where you start a conversation and then don't see any actual work out of that until 3, 4, 5 years down the line. So for me, it's always reminding myself that it's part of the process, and that every interaction I have, as long as I come to it bringing value and being authentic, it's just one step further to really making that sale down the line, even though a lot of times for us, while that's the intent, it's also not the driver, if that makes sense. Like, your long-term goal is to build business for your company, but it's also maintaining those relationships that can help you in different wins and small wins along the line. And so that's what I focus on, especially with resilience and patience. It's just seeing we've made one step and we're progressing in this trajectory forward to that end goal down the line, but it will take time.
Amy, I love the way and the fact that you use the word process, because essentially that's what we're putting out for you is the framework of a sales process, from lead gen to building that relationship to closing it, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, Lauren, you're absolutely right. And that can be encapsulated by you're providing value. So it's never about you. It's about them. It's about recognizing their needs. It's about bridging the gap to those needs, and your prospect, your client, everybody else in that relationship always comes first. And you have to come from a very altruistic place of, how can I provide value? How can I help them to continue fostering and building that relationship? Anything else?
And I will add on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's kind of ironic for us in certain times where I've actually been able to win work by referring other architect firms, because you show that you're really caring, especially if it's a job that we don't have capacity to do or it's not in our wheelhouse. If I can say, you know what, we could do that for you, but we're not the best team, I recommend this person for you, that actually creates more value, more trust, more connection with that client, that leads to better opportunities down the line.
Yes, and to that point, I also factor in about 15% of my time for pro bono work, because I know that there are people that will show up in my life that I really, really want to help, but that can't necessarily afford to work with me. So I will volunteer for them, and I will get them to where they need to be. Now, some of them decide throughout our relationship, hey, entrepreneurship is not for me. I do not want to continue building this business because it is hard. It is hard to run a business. It is hard to build a team. But others get that click, and it takes them from, $0, $10,000, $50,000 in revenue a year to within a year crossing that $300,000, $500,000 line. And they're like, oh my God, I get it. And then it's like the person that you've given some of your time to help them accelerate is now becoming the best relationship building buddy you have, because you've taken nothing from them, but you've given them everything.
Absolutely. And I will say, even despite the difference in our industries, our company does the same, where if a developer is looking at buying a plot of land, but they don't know what they can build on it, our team will go in and say, you know what, we'll create a site fit or a density study and show you what this building could look like, so that you can put some numbers to it and see if it's actually a worthwhile investment for your team too.
Yeah, amazing. I can't remember who do you want to? No,
I can take this
I'm
in this
starting.
part.
I'm starting that one. I'm starting that one. This is what happens when you try to do gymnastics with a PowerPoint presentation. I'm like, who goes first? So I think that one of the things that Amy's already touched on is that this is a marathon. So building relationships and building your ecosystem is going to take time. So you really truly have to think through what works for you and your schedule. And what you do not want to do is overcommit and underdeliver. I think that building that diverse toolkit of things that you can do in order to prioritize your time is going to be super important. So one of them is obviously choosing wisely what kind of events and activities you are attending with your clients, with your prospects, to meet prospects, to wingman somebody or wingwoman somebody at that event. But you can also send them a bunch of things. And I think Amy, you put a list together, so I'll let you kind of go over that.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we were talking about, it's a process. It is the continuation of that relationship, and that doesn't happen over one interaction. It happens over multiple iterations over time. And so this type toolkit is avenues and opportunities for you to continue being in front and maintaining that relationship. And so news is a great example. So if I know that Aggie is really into entrepreneurship and I find some incredible articles about that, I'll probably send them her way and just say, hey, I was thinking about you. I know this is something you're interested in. Thought you might enjoy reading this. And it gets me back in front of her, back to front of mind. And when she's thinking about any kind of those buying opportunities, I might be closer to that. Oh, right, Amy does that. I can hire her. Tags and mentions is another one. If you see something on social media that resonates or kind of involves that person, tagging them pops you just back up on their radar and can be another positive interaction and kind of deposit into that checking account of your relationship where they say, oh, right, they're thinking about me. They're remembering what's important to me. They're considering these elements that matter, and that means something, and can kind of build that relationship from there.
Yeah, we've already touched on volunteering your expertise. There are so many things that you can do. Volunteering for Energize Colorado, for example, or volunteering for Techstars. Spending your time in organization that can give some of your expertise, because I'm sure some of you have talents that other people may need, and sharing a little bit of that can go a long way. And under other, I will put everything else. I love getting to know my prospects and my client on a more intimate level, to where I know their birthdays, I know their spouses, I know their children, I know if they like wine and what type of wine they like, what type of books they read, et cetera, et cetera. So I do a lot of homework to be able to wish them a happy birthday and send them a handwritten card when that day happens. But most importantly, the lesson to this is don't hide behind emails. There are other ways to continue fostering this relationship. And so many times I hear, well, I sent them an email 3 weeks ago and I haven't heard back from them. Okay, well, I sometimes accidentally delete my email, so I'm expecting a follow-up if this is important. And it's just because I have a trigger finger, so I'll press the delete button a little bit too fast, and I won't notice that one of them that was clicked was important. So if you don't follow up with me, or if I don't follow up with prospects and clients, you'll never know if they're ignoring you, if they're not interested, or if they simply didn't get the information. So do not hide behind your emails. There are other ways to just reconnect with people.
And don't let them forget about you, because that can happen too. We're busy. There's a lot of people in our lives. Follow-up is the way that we stay in front of them and stay front of mind.
Exactly. The other really... Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So the other big important piece is to know when to say no. We can do a lot, especially as women. We're good at multitasking. We're good at taking on the world. But there's a point where it's just not worth it. And in business development, that is truly the case. There are some clients that are just terrible to work with. And there are some clients that just don't make sense. Either for us, they don't pay the bills, or they play the blame game, or they backtalk you to other people in the industry. We don't, in this world, have to do everything with everyone all the time. So set your boundaries and set your expectations for what makes sense for you. And I know you kind of have a breakdown of the two places, Aggie, that are kind of really important to recognize where people do and do not fit into your ecosystem.
Yeah, I'm very passionate about this because I've been through calendar dread, and I do not want to be there anymore. So I've fired clients that were getting a lot of benefits from our relationships, but I could not align with them and their team and their values. So to me, two big places to say no are, number one, the prospect wants to be in your ecosystem, but you can't help them. You cannot be everything to everyone. Niching your services is very, very important. When I let people know who I work with, I say women business owners and immigrants, and obviously I have kind of my bracket of top line revenue, and I don't go below that and I don't go above that because I know that it's not my expertise, but I can refer them to other people if they're too big or too small, or I choose to volunteer too. If I really like them, I volunteer my time. But then the second one is there is no alignment between the two parties. So your values are not aligned, your focus is not aligned, that the person that wants to work with you or wants to buy your service or wants to buy your product doesn't really need it. So why would you force sell it to them? There is no chemistry, and obviously the price is a big deal as well. So those are kind of like the two of, you can't help them because you don't have the resources, you don't have the knowledge to help them. But then on the other end, there is no alignment. So everything is kind of exploding on either side.
And I would say for us on the architecture, engineering, construction side, and really with Aggie too, it's also a matter of how many clients you currently have and are currently serving. And you need to be able to maintain your ability to deliver and deliver well at the values that make sense for you. And if you take on too many clients or too many of the wrong clients, it impedes that ability to move forward. So for example, with us, we have a certain number of projects and they take a certain amount of time. And if we see a new project coming up that someone wants us to bid on, but it falls poorly within our backlog or that timeline, we're gonna have to say no, even if they're the right person and we love working with them, it's an incredible job, it's in our strategic plan. But if we can't deliver, then that undermines everything I've done in building that relationship and promising our services as a company. And so that's another one of valuing your time, but also valuing yours, because you don't want to overload your team with jobs that they can't do, where they get to burn out or start resenting you and the relationship that you build. But you also don't want to promise something to a client that you can't ultimately deliver, because that will erode your relationship faster than anything else, except for perhaps a breach of trust. But I think by doing that and saying we can do this job and then not doing it well is a breach of that trust.
Mm-hmm. I love that you mentioned the team approach, because that's kind of relevant to the next phase of this conversation. Mm-hmm. You have sourced your leads, you have brought them on, you're building that relationship, and the next thing is you're ready to close. So, I mean, you can see some of the things that we've pointed out here of identifying the trigger. So have they given you indications that they're ready for you? So you can do that by proactive objection handling, kind of trying to say, I love to say, I'm not cheap to work with. So that sets the expectation already that people are going to need to pay for my services. I also say, hey, I know that you feel like you may be too small for this because you only have 5 employees. But if you want to scale and start building your team, then let's work together on seeing how that may work, because I've worked with a lot of companies like that. So kind of validating what you've done, that helps you identify the trigger and helps you identify where whatever the person that you're trying to close is swaying. You can do, soft closing techniques, et cetera, et cetera. But most importantly, Amy and I represent two kind of closed processes where I am maintaining that sales process from start to finish, because I am selling my services and then I go provide my services. Whereas Amy, you're a little different because you sell, but you don't necessarily implement.
Correct. So my trigger is a handoff traditionally. So at that point, it's where I'm talking with a developer, I'm talking with a client, and they say, okay, we want to engage your services. Who am I going to be working with? I am not an architect. I cannot design a building or build a building, or if I do, it's definitely going to fall down. So I need to make sure that I'm connecting to them, to the right people in my firm that are going to match the values of their company, have the right timeline to be able to get the job done, and have the right expertise to match what product they're building and selling. And that then goes into these larger conversations, because I am finding those connections and building that liaison. That's really my leadership team and our project managers that are going to sign that dotted line with the client. So mine is more so figuring out, are you ready to move forward with design? If so, great. Who am I going to introduce you to? Facilitating that introduction, setting expectations on both ends. So letting the client know who I'm introducing them to and why. Letting my team know what the project is, what their goals are, where they're going, and how they need to deliver. And then being the person that can negotiate that conversation so that we get into that contract and move forward. But it's also a little bit of a difficult game, because I am trusting that the people I'm selling and the people I'm handing off to are going to maintain that relationship with the same intimacy and interest and motivation that I have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that takes us to our last phase, whether you close or not. So Amy, I'll let you lead on that one.
So maintain is part of the way that I'm able to stay in that conversation and make sure that we are delivering. So once we do close, say we win a project and we're building a new multifamily building here and right now, I will stay in conversation with that developer, with those clients, and just have regular checkups that goes into this client care plan. Just say, hey, how are we doing? Is my team delivering like I said that they would? Are they getting things to you on time? Are we making new money like we promised we would? Are we bringing innovation to the table, or are we being a pain in the neck and not responding? And if we are, then what can I do? How can I facilitate changing that so that we are providing the service that I promised and that they've promised from the beginning? So then I'll go back and hold my team accountable to that. So if we aren't delivering, if we aren't being responsive enough, then I will go back and address that internally so that we're maintaining that accountability, that we're giving the clients the care that we promised. So that's where the client care plans, the project progress check-ins, and accountability really comes into play. But then it's also maintaining. So even though we won one job, I still need to be out there looking for the next and the next and the next. And I need to maintain all of those different levels of interaction with those clients and those prospects. So I'm continually funneling a pipeline. And I'll let you kind of talk a little bit more about your approach on that, Aggie.
No, I love that. And my approach is very similar, to where I have to make sure that as we build our relationship with my clients, that I understand that I'm doing a good job. So I very regularly do check-ins and kind of go over the roadmap that we've built together, add to that roadmap, find out, where they feel like we're not going fast enough or where they think we can build capacity. But I also take the lead on a lot of that and make sure that I build a few of the things for them to kind of increase their capacity on the back end. And I think one of the most important factors here is that accountability part, to where you never can overpromise and underdeliver, whether it's to a prospect or to a client, because then you lose that piece of trust that you've built with them. So those regular check-ins, those care plans that also work with prospects as well, because if somebody kind of triggered you on the relationship front to where you're really interested in what they're doing and you haven't closed that deal yet, maintaining through that follow-up that we've already talked about is really, really important as well.
I think all of that goes into the final piece of network. It is a funnel, it's a marathon. Again, it's all of these elements where it's an ongoing process. And that network is going to allow you to find new prospects, maintain new prospects, give introductions, add value, and just open your eyes to new opportunities and things you haven't heard of. I mean, we know business development, we've been doing it for years, but there's new techniques, new ideas, new opportunities, innovations coming out every day. And people are figuring things out. And so the more we network and maintain connections, the better success we'll have, the more opportunities will come our way. And Aggie mentioned this earlier, but you never know where a lead will come from. I mean, I've gone to a concert and chatted up with a friend who introduced me to someone else who happens to be a multifamily developer. They can come from everywhere. So be open with that network and maintain that network, because it is powerful professionally and personally.
I have nothing to add to that. You said it perfectly. So that takes us to our last kind of recap. You know, we've talked about, we've helped you build your framework for your entire sales process of lead gen, then building that relationship, fostering those leads. Some of them will close, others won't yet. If you've read the book Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, you know that a no is not a no, it's a not yet. So just fostering that relationship, building your network, understanding who the people that you're talking to are, and sometimes introducing them to somebody that's going to propulse them to the next level is just as powerful as you helping them personally, or you selling them a product or a service, and then maintaining. So anything else you have to add, Amy? If not, we'll take questions or have you share a few things.
Let's answer some of those questions that people might have.
Yeah.
Hey guys, Chef Sherry here, and I'm curious about a situation that sometimes I run into where I will reach out to partners who are carrying my sauces, and I just want to say, you know, hey, how's it going? Checking in. Is there anything I can do for you? And just, I don't get responses. Everything's fine, it turns out, but I just don't get responses. You know, I live in dread of silence, right? Because I start to think, did I, you know, is it not going well? Do they not want to talk to me? What's going on? So how do you handle those kinds of situations?
I'll jump in to start. I would say sometimes just switching up your approach on how you're asking can be effective. Because sometimes if it's an email, kind of what Aggie was mentioning earlier, we get a lot of email and sometimes we don't look at it. So changing it up and maybe someday going into where they're selling them and seeing if you can have a face-to-face conversation and just saying, hey, I wanted to see what it's looking like, you know, how you're selling it, just wanted to check in kind of that way. A phone call can help sometimes, just kind of different methods or avenues to pursue that question sometimes makes a difference. Not all the time though.
No, not all the time. I like to take two approaches. Number one, play coy. If they don't respond to me, I'd be like, hey, just making sure you're alive, because I'm getting concerned right now. Like, are you okay? And generally, if I make that approach, like, oh yeah, I'm so sorry, I did not, you know, get to answer you, I'm so busy. And I'm like, no problem. I just wanted to make sure that everything was fine. That usually gets them on the phone, or at least text and stuff like that. Or I just show up to take them to lunch. You know, just being like, hey, just wanted to check in on you. I'm here since you've been ignoring me. And you know, let's go to lunch to make sure that there is anything that I can do for you that would expand our relationship even further.
Okay, that sounds great. Thanks.
Hello, everyone.
Hey.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Genevera. I'm a nurse professor at the College of Nursing. Mm-hmm. My interest in my business is to have a professional training that is centered in, you know, giving immigrant women, being able to train them to have something that they can work with. I train them for what we call qualified medication assistant personnel, which gives them opportunity to find a job in any of the, whether it's a group home or nursing home, or, you know, be able to keep clients in their homes, to be able to earn a living. It started in a very slow pace, and I haven't been able to expand it because I'm just finishing my PhD next week, which I'm trying to expand it more. This is my question. You know, I got the first grant, 15,000. One lady helped me to get there. I got so discouraged because I filed a tax and I ended up owing the government. I only do QMAP, I didn't even make up to 15,000 for the year, but the grant made it up to 20 because I have 30,000. I ended up owing IRS close to 9,000. I am shaken to hell to even to ask for grants. Now that I'm trying to establish like where I can have like mannequins, simulations, to be able to retrain these women, especially those that cannot function, that they don't have the skills, but they need to be retrained. I've been very slow to apply for anything, no matter how small it is. So I wanted to ask you all, I don't know if it was a mistake from the person that filed the income tax, or I don't know, how do you direct me on what to do? Because I want to expand this business this summer, since I'm done with school next week, to be able to add more things that we can utilize for our immigrant women and single moms that want to have something as a career or that can fetch them an income. How do you advise me in that? Because I need a lot of support, but I don't know how to come. Financial support to buy the things I need, even to be able to pay for the rent. Because the $100 for a training for 7 hours for a PhD or master's degree, you know, I'm not making money. But I need money to be able to start. How do you help me, advise me in that area?
Amy, I'll take the lead on that if that's okay.
Go for
Okay.
it.
What kind of structure is your business? Is it a for-profit, B Corp, or nonprofit?
You see, that is a very good question. I didn't know what the difference between nonprofit because I just started this. It was a lady, a faculty, we just hired her newly here at Pickens Technical College. She said, make it nonprofit. And then how do I get into nonprofit? I don't have an idea because I've never done business. I've been a nurse all my life. But from nursing, after working in nursing homes and hospitals, I decided to teach as in the School of Nursing. But I want to be able to use my knowledge to make a difference in our community. So if I know how to step into nonprofit, somebody advised me on that, I'll be able to, I don't know where to go from there.
So there's the nonprofit, and this is a much longer conversation that I'm happy to connect with you on separately. But getting and starting a nonprofit is a monster by itself to set up all of the tax documents that make you a nonprofit. In most instances, grant funds, unfortunately, are counted as taxable income on a federal tax return if you are a for-profit business, because no money is free, right? You're getting money to do something, but you always have to factor in for taxes. So if you are not set up as a nonprofit, those grant funds are going to be taxed at whatever bracket that you fall under in terms of revenue. Now, if your expenses, business related expenses, exceed the amount of income that you've made, or you break even, then you shouldn't be paying any taxes, period, because that's how business work. But feel free to connect with me on that, and I'll do a little bit more research to help you. Amy, you have anything on?
Thank you, Angie.
And my only, I think, advice would be to utilize your network, especially when you feel lost. Finding others who are in a similar realm as you, who are dealing with refugee or immigrant populations, who are dealing with single women and single families, who are working with grant money, and ask them those same questions. You know, how are you structuring your business? What grants are you applying for? How are you managing the funds? How are you building your resources? Just being a sponge to your counterparts in the industry. Everybody tends, especially in the nonprofit realm, to be open to support and help one another. So finding the right people to ask questions to like Aggie, for example, is really kind of the best way to go, because they're going to be able to fill you in on all the places to look and resources that are out there that you aren't aware of yet.
Yeah, my second suggestion was going to be exactly what Coralie said in the chat, is finding a fiscal sponsor to funnel those funds through.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Angie, can I send you email after this meeting, both of you?
Yeah, so you can, hold on. Here is our contact information if you want to follow up with either one of us. And I'll put it in the chats too, so that so you can just click on it.
And I would like just to thank you so much, Aggie and Amy, for today. I mean, this was so useful, I know, for me and everyone on the call. And thank you so much for your time as well. We do have more in-person events coming up. We're going to post that through our newsletter and through our Facebook group. So be on the lookout for that, for virtual and in-person events.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the help.
Everyone have a good day.
You too.